I hauled myself up the ladder of the F divided by V northwind. Each rung a small, painful victory. My legs complained, as if they'd been used for some other person's journey. 14 hours of hauling nets will do that. The harbour of Sitka lay low and quiet beneath me. Only the slow creak of wooden hulls and the distant, lonely bark of a sea lion cutting through the night air. The sky was thinning into a cold, grey hush. Salt had crystallized at my hairline, and my shoulders burned when I rolled them back. Just one more thing to do tonight, I told myself. Log the haul, get 6 hours of sleep, meet the tide again before dawn. I pushed open the cabin door, my hands slipping on the weathered frame like I needed its grip more than the wood did. The cabin smelled of diesel, old rope, and the faint sweetness of steamed fish. Rachel hunched over my laptop, spine bent toward the screen with a kind of focus she never bothered to give my real work. Her fingers flew across the keys, as if they were racing an invisible clock. My fishing journal lay open beside her. Pages fanned out the neat, cramped coordinates I wrote over years staring back at me. "What are you doing?" The question slid out of my throat rough and small. Rachel started, a hand going to her throat. "Kate! I didn't expect you back so soon." She didn't close the laptop. She didn't try to hide what she was doing. A flash drive stuck from the USB port like a bright, accusing finger. My private logs, my maps, my years of finding the places that put fish in the nets. That little stick of plastic had them all. I stepped closer and felt my stomach knot. Someone had already photographed pages of the journal and set them in a neat pile on the table. "The department needs data on sustainable fishing grounds," Rachel said, as if she were asking to borrow sugar. "It's for my thesis." She tucked a clean lock of hair behind her ear. The motion was small and practiced, the way she always made herself look harmless. My hands curled into fists without me meaning to. Those locations weren't just scribbles. They were sweat months of being out in storms. Nights spent following cold, slippery charts, marking underwater ridges and seasonal runs no one else had the patience to track. Years of work that kept this boat running and kept food in our mouths. "Those are my journals," I said, keeping my voice low because yelling in a small cabin felt like giving up something. Her eyes narrowed a fraction. "It's family knowledge, Kate. You didn't invent fishing." The words landed like a salt-soaked slap, and for a second I saw our mother's face-tight smile, eyes flicking away when I'd once mentioned Rachel's team knocked a depth sounder loose. "Your sister is doing important scientific work," Dad had chimed in. Like that alone made everything else unimportant. Heat climbed my neck. The memory of the dinner, last week potatoes passed around with silence, came back with a fresh sting. "She's my sister," Rachel said, as if that made permission automatic. "We're family." The harbour lights bent across her face, shaping it into our mother's again. The same entitled tilt, the same sure little curl of the lip. I saw the way she thought the world owed her things. Footsteps thudded on the deck outside. Mum and Dad filled the doorway like a picture frame, the way they always do, smiling, then adjusting when the edges don't fit. "What's going on?" Dad's voice filled the cabin the way a storm fills a small town. Rachel, quick and practiced, turned on the charm. "Kate's being dramatic. She's acting like my research needs blocking. As if her fishing spots are trade secrets." Mom's hand went to Rachel's shoulder before she asked me what happened. "Honey, what do you need?" she asked, the circle closing tight and automatic. I felt invisible under that hand. "They're copying my logs without permission," I said, and the words sounded weird in my own mouth, too small, too public. The flash drive on the table looked like a thief's receipt. "Those are proprietary locations. I've been mapping them for years. They keep this business afloat." Dad's face hardened the way granite splits a coastline. "Kate, don't be selfish," he said. Old hooks in my chest twitched. There it was, selfish. The word that's been thrown at me whenever I asked for anything that wasn't for someone else. When I asked for new navigation gear so the crew didn't have to gamble in fog. When I suggested Rachel learn deck work like everyone else. This is for Rachel's future, Dad added, like that settled it. I told them to get off my boat. The words were quiet but final. Mum sighed and moved toward me as if I were a child to be soothed. "You're being dramatic," she said. And Rachel rolled her eyes as if drama was the real crime. They left, but not without the last twist. Rachel clutching the flash drive, my parents muttering about ungrateful daughters, my anger solidifying into something colder outside. The night welcomed me back with the same indifferent wind. I stood at the rail and watched them walk down the dock until the shadows swallowed their last outline. When I went back inside, the cabin felt too small for my breathing. I slid open the hidden compartment beneath my bunk, place I kept paper that mattered more than the warm blanket, and touched the folder with the ownership papers. Signed 18 months ago. Howard C. LLC, my name where theirs had been. I had taken out a second mortgage and bought out their shares in silence. I smoothed the single dress shirt I owned, as if the motion could iron out my plans, the debt, the quiet hours of calculation and saving. 3 days later I pulled into their driveway. The Cape Cod house sat the same weathered grey, smoke from the chimney smoking up into an orange Sitka sunset. An ordinary picture of stability. Grandpa Howard rocked on the porch, his hands thick and knotted like old ropes. He looked at me with a sharpness that made me stop the truck. Mike and Tamars lingered behind him, awkward in the presence of family ritual. "Kate," Grandpa's voice rusted into a whisper. He pressed a folded note into my palm. "You might need this tonight. Read it before you go in." I unfolded it right there in the truck. His handwriting, trembling and sure, sent a spike through me. "They've been showing the Northwind to people without telling you. Check your bag twice tonight." My canvas bag suddenly sat heavy beside me. I slid Grandpa's note into it, tucking it by the folder of ownership papers like a secret armor. I walked into the house and felt the air change. There was an unfamiliar tension, like the hum before a tide shift. Voices in the dining room stopped when I stepped in. A man I didn't know said, "The conversion shouldn't take more than 6 weeks." Another voice, my father's, the businessman one asked, "And the permits transfer seamlessly?" There was a certain ease to his tone, a way he farmed decisions out, and expected them to be picked up like a parcel. 5 faces turned to me. My parents, Rachel, and 2 men in pressed khakis who smelled faintly of academic conferences and coffee. "Kate," Mom trilled, too bright. "You're early. Sit down, have some wine. We have wonderful news." The table was set with the china we only brought out for big things, and a bottle of champagne stood in the center like an announcement. I scanned the papers, spread out across the table, and the sound of my stomach dropped. Deck plans, sections highlighted, items labeled, conversion plans, research layout, lab stations where my engine room should be. "Who are they?" I asked, because names help make strangers into something you can fight. "This is Dr. Patterson from the Coastal Marine Institute, and his colleague, Dr. Winters," Dad said, presenting them like new curtains for our house. Dr. Patterson offered his hand, smile wide. "Pleasure to meet the captain I've heard so much about." I didn't take it. My eyes went straight to my father. "Why are you discussing permits for my boat?" Mum's laugh was small and too light. "Don't be dramatic, Kate. This is a wonderful opportunity." Rachel's face crumpled into grin-happy victory. I got accepted to the PhD program, full funding. The family applause was soft and rehearsed. My feet felt planted to the floor as Dad explained. A buyer had been found for the Northwind. The university wanted it as a research vessel. Permits would transfer with the sale. Research would take first priority, and occasional commercial catches could help fund the program. The words washed over me, clean and casual, like someone explaining a change to a grocery list. When were you planning to tell me? The question didn't want to be shouted, but it pushed past my teeth anyway. We're telling you now, Mom said, like that made it right. Rachel reached for the champagne, and the room lightened around her. They're going to rename it the Howard Research Vessel, she said, already rehearsing the plaque. Outside the window, Mike and Tomas leaned against their trucks exactly where Grandpa had told them to wait earlier. My hands found the canvas bag at my feet. I looked at Grandpa. His eyes gave a small, almost imperceptible nod toward the bag. Something in my chest unclenched, not because I expected help, but because I realized I did not have to be the only one to keep the truth. I set the leather folder down on the table and opened it like a reveal at the end of a long show. "What's this?" Dad asked. His face, which had been smooth as oil, started to peel into a color I recognized as fear. The title was plain: Ownership of the F divided by V Northwind. Howard CLLC signed and registered my name in formal ink. I laid down bank statements beside it. I had been making payments for 18 months. A second mortgage, quiet and relentless. The room rearranged itself air colder. Chairs waiting. Dr. Patterson leaned forward, curiosity plain. "These appear to be legitimate transfer documents," he said. Mum went pale. "You went behind our backs?" She said, "A woman insulted rather than a partner betrayed. Like you're doing right now?" I met her stare, and the years of being dismissed flashed through me. The time I asked for updated navigational gear and was told to prioritize Rachel's program. The times I suggested Rachel work shifts and be part of the boat and was told no. She needed school. "This is different," Rachel said, her voice sharp now. "This is for science." The word science turned everything she'd done into noble work, like a medal that cleared any sins. "For my career," she added. My breath came out in a slow, tired exhale. "For your undergraduate degree, Rachel, my career paid for it," I said. My voice felt like gravel. Every payment I'd made, every cold night at sea, every repaired net had been a promise to myself, not a ticket for someone else's gain. I thought of the nights I had crawled into the bunk exhausted, thinking of the next tide and the next mortgage payment. I thought of the long mapping trips, the markers on a chart that I had kept like a secret recipe. And now our table had been set to sign those recipes away. The room was silent except for the small noises of a house that felt too full of strangers. Papers shuffled. The cork from the champagne thudded into a bowl like something breaking quietly. Grandpa's eyes sat on me, steady and old as the sea. In that look was a lifetime of tides and choices, of things you give up and things you keep. I thought about the Northwind, her hull rubbed by rough water, her engine that I had learned to coax back to life, the smells and the small rhythms that had become my life. I thought about my crew, the night sky, the map tattooed into my hands. I thought about having to fight for the life I had built, and how many times I'd chosen to keep the peace for the sake of a family who only knew how to. You don't sell somebody's life while they sleep," I said. It wasn't a question. It was a line I'd been practicing in my head for months. A way to make the world listen. You don't transfer permits without their permission. Dad's jaw clenched, the old business tone returning like an old coat. "We thought this was best for the family." "For the family?" I repeated. "You mean for Rachel?" My voice rose, steady with a heat I couldn't cool. "My work paid for her degree. On a boat you're now trying to sell from under me." Dr. Patterson examines the documents with growing discomfort. "These transfer papers appear completely legal, Mr. Howard. You signed over your ownership shares on." He squints at the date, February 12th of last year. Dad's face crumples with disbelief. I never signed these, you did. I pull out another paper. The same day you asked for $15,000 for roof repairs. Remember signing for that loan? I will be no V. Recognition flickers in his eyes, followed by fury. You tricked us. No, I say quietly. I protected myself. There's a difference. Grandpa suppresses what might be a smile behind his weathered hand. This is a family boat. Mom insists, voice rising. Your grandfather built that business for all of us, not just you. And I've kept it running for all of us. I rest my hands flat on the table, but apparently that wasn't enough. So now it's just mine. The champagne sits forgotten as Rachel's academic dreams collapse in real time. Doctor. Patterson awkwardly gathers his papers, murmuring something about family matters and contacting Univity Council. Through the window I see Mike and Tomas straighten, watching the house like sentinels. They've been waiting for my signal, just as I've been waiting for this moment when my family finally sees me not as the daughter they can use, but as the captain who owns the tide. Morning fog rolls across Sitka Harbor as I secure the last line to the cleat. 3 weeks since I revealed the ownership papers, and the war has only intensified. I wipe salt spray from my face, squinting at the figure marching down the dock toward me. Dad's jaw works back and forth before he even reaches speaking distance. His boots thunder on the wooden planks like drumbeats announcing battle. This isn't over, Catherine. He thrusts a manila envelope at me. My attorney says we have grounds to contest. You deliberately deceived your own family. I take the envelope without opening it. I paid fair market value. To the penny. You went behind our backs while living under our roof. Your roof. I feel heat rising in my neck. The second mortgage on the Northwind paid for that roof. For Rachel's college. For Mom's knee surgery. Dad's face reddens. We're family. Everything was supposed to be shared. Funny how sharing only works one way. I tuck the envelope into my jacket. I'll have my attorney review this. He jabs a finger at the Northwind. Your mother is calling everyone we know. Nobody in Sitka will buy your catch once they understand what you've done. The threat settles like a weight. My phone buzzes the 5th call from Mom's sister this morning. The smear campaign is already working. Go home, Dad. I turn back to my preparations, refusing to let him see how his words land. As his footsteps fade, I pull out my phone, clicking to the messages from Rachel's sobbing voicemails, claiming her career is finished without access to the Northwind. As if her entire academic future hinges on stealing my life's work. 3 hours later, I sit across from Maggie Sorensen in her Juneau law office, the harbor visible through rain-streaked windows. She slides the contested documents back into her leather portfolio. Your purchase is ironclad. She taps her pen against the desk. Your parents signed these transfer documents voluntarily, with notarization. The fact they didn't realize you were the buyer behind Howard C. LLC is irrelevant. Relief loosens the knot in my chest. They're saying I manipulated them. Kate, you paid 20% above market value. Maggie's eyes narrow. If anything, they took advantage of you. Kate, I glance at my watch. I need to get back. We're heading out at dawn. One more thing. She slides a folder toward me. I confirmed your new mortgage contract in Dutch Harbor. Processing plant manager there says your supply contract is secure whenever you're ready. The word whenever hangs between us. We both know it's becoming a question of when, not if. Back at the harbor, the familiar smell of salt and diesel usually centers me, but today the sight of Grandpa's truck in the parking lot quickens my steps. He sits on a piling, a wooden box beside him, watching gulls circle overhead. There's the captain. His weathered face creases into a smile as I approach. Not feeling much like one today. I settle beside him. Dad came by with legal threats. Grandpa snorts. James always thought a loud voice made him right. He pats the wooden box. Brought you something. Inside lies a stack of yellowed fishing logs. Handwritten entries dating back 50 years. Coordinates, catches, weather observations. A lifetime of knowledge. Your grandmother used to say I loved these waters more than her. Grandpa's voice softens. She wasn't wrong, but she understood. It's in our blood. He taps the logs. I was saving these for whoever proved worthy. I knew from the time you were 10, and insisted on baiting your own hooks. It was you. You're the true captain among them. My throat tightens. They don't see it that way. I fought my own brothers for the right to run our father's boat. He points toward the water. Those fights never end. They just change form. Every captain chooses between pleasing others and following their compass. From his pocket, he draws out a brass compass, the glass face scratched from decades of use. This guided me through 50 years of storms. He places it in my palm, closing my fingers around it. Navigate your own course, Katie girl. The metal warms against my skin as I nod. Unable to speak. The confrontation comes Thursday morning, just as we're loading for a 3-day run. I spot them from the WHEELHOUSE. Dad, Mum, Rachel, and 4 research assistants carrying equipment cases. My deckhands notice too. Mike steps onto the dock, arms crossed. Jaden and Thomas flank him without a word. The 3 form a human barrier between my family and the north wind. We have a schedule to keep, Mike says. Voice steady. Mom steps forward. This is a family matter. Step aside. We work for Captain Howard. Jaden doesn't budge. And she's on a tide. Rachel pushes past her assistants. Kate, you're destroying years of research. The university needs these waters. The university can fill out permit applications like everyone else. I call from the deck, the brass compass heavy in my pocket. Dad's face darkens as he turns to the research team. Load the equipment. She won't stop you. As the assistants move forward, I raise my hand. Step on my vessel without permission, and I'll have you arrested for trespassing. The harbour master appears. Clipboard in hand. Is there a problem here? Dad wheels toward him. My daughter is university research. We're filing an emergency injunction against the registered owner of the vessel. The harbour master checks his clipboard. Howard C. LLC has all permits in order. If you're not crew, you need to clear the loading area. Rachel's assistants exchange glances, slowly backing away. Mom's eyes fill with tears as she clutches Dad's arm. I feel a moment of wavering, then remember Grandpa's words about choosing my course. That night, I gather my crew in the galley. Steam rises from coffee mugs as I spread charts across the table. Dutch Harbour. The Bering Sea. New grounds. Far from Sitka's watchful eyes. These contracts offer each of you 15% of the catch instead of 10. I slide the papers forward. I understand if this is too much family drama for anyone. Mike scans the document, then looks up. When do we leave? Dawn. I trace our course on the map with my finger, without looking back. Thomas raises his mug. To the north wind. As they clink cups, I feel something unfamiliar rising in my chest. Not anger, not hurt, but liberation. Tomorrow, the horizon will open before us, and for the first time, I'll be truly at the helm of my own life. I think of the compass in my pocket, pointing towards something that was always Manetto claim. The pre-dawn darkness wraps around the north wind like a promise as I guide her through the narrow channel leading from Sitka Harbour. My hands steady on the wheel, knuckles white, not from strain but resolve. Each turn of the propeller carries us farther from the only home I've known, but with every nautical mile, the vice around my chest loosens a notch. We're clear of the last marker. Captain, Marco, my first mate of 7 years, stands beside me in the wheelhouse. Voice low as if we're stealing away rather than claiming what's rightfully mine. Take her to cruising speed. I nod, allowing myself to look back at the fading lights of Sitka. The town sleeps, unaware that the north wind won't return to her usual slip. I didn't expect the sight to sting so much. The satellite phone on the console buzzes for the 3rd time in 20 minutes. Dad again. I let it ring until silence returns. They're gonna keep calling. Marco raises an eyebrow, the lines around his eyes deepening. Let them. I pull the throttle forward, feeling the deck rumble beneath my feet as the north wind responds. The first genuine smile in weeks spreads across my face. We've got new grounds to find. The phone buzzes again before I finish speaking, this time with a text message alert. Coast Guard has been notified of vessel theft. Return immediately or face charges. The anger I've tamped down flares hot in my belly. I grab the phone, thumbs flying across the screen. Vessel documentation filed with Maritime Administration shows Howard C. LLC as sole owner. Try again. Dad. I forward the title documents to the harbour master and 3 other captains in the fleet. Insurance against whatever story my father's spinning on shore. Marco whistles low. Your dad playing the stolen boat card. Harsh. Not as harsh as trying to sell my livelihood out from under me. I tuck the phone away, focusing instead on the chart plotter where I've marked our course to the Bering Sea grounds. New territory for the north wind. But I've spent months gathering intelligence from other captains, studying current patterns, mapping underwater ridges where king crab gather. By mid-morning, calls shift to Rachel's number. I finally answer after the 7th attempt. Kate, please. Her voice catches with familiar practiced vulnerability. My entire research program depends on access to those waters. Just one more trip. My professor should find another boat. I cut her off, watching a pair of humpbacks surface off our starboard side. Or better yet, apply for proper research grants instead of stealing proprietary data. It's not stealing when it's family knowledge, Rachel protests, the entitled whine in her tone making my jaw clench. Family knowledge bought with my mortgage, my fuel, my labor. I take a deep breath. The north wind is no longer available for Howard family use. Good luck with your thesis. I hang up, switching the phone to silent, and tucking it into the galley drawer. Through the window I watch Marco and the crew preparing crab pots on the deck, their movements synchronized from years working together. They all chose to come with me, even knowing it meant burning bridges with the Howard name and Sitka. By afternoon, the radio crackles with familiar voices. Captain Jensen of the Fortitude, then Bartlett on the Sea Witch. Heard you finally broke harbour lines. Howard, Jensen's gruff voice comes through. About damn time. About damn time. Your old man's been telling tales at the coffee shop, Bartlett adds. But seems the harbour master set him straight about who owns what. The Howards aren't making many friends today. Their support loosens something in my throat. I've known these men my whole life. Watched them treat my father with deference while leverage the Howard name. Now they're choosing sides mine. 3 days later we drop pots in waters I've never worked before. The crew is quiet, tense, knowing everything rides on this haul. I've staked everything on being right about these grounds. When we pull the first string of pots, they come up so heavy the hydraulics strain. Massive king crabs, shells gleaming, tumble onto the sorting table. The crew erupts in whoops and hollers while I stay silent, running calculations in my head. At these weights, we're looking at a record haul. That night, the processing plant manager called personally to confirm our arrival time. Word is you've hit the mother load. Howard, we'll clear dock space for you. After the call, I gathered the crew in the galley. Beer appears from the cooler, and I don't object when Marco slides a bottle my way. For the first time, I tell them everything. The years of my parents treating the boat as family property, while I carried the payments alone. Rachel's academic theft. The final betrayal of trying to sell the Northwind out from under me. To Captain Howard, Marco raises his bottle. Who finally realized blood doesn't entitle people to steal your future. To the Northwind, someone else calls. And Dutch Harbor, a new home port. I take a long pull from my beer, feeling the cold liquid wash away years of swallowed words. My phone shows 17 missed calls and a social media notification. Mum's public post about family betrayal getting ripped apart by commenters who know the truth. I delete the notification without reading further. Their voices can't reach me here, on my boat, surrounded by people who respect boundaries and honest work. For the first time in my adult life, I'm navigating by my own charts, and the water ahead looks clear all the way to the horizon. 3 months later, we were at the new port, and I collected more evidence and team to protect my legacy. The shadow of the Northwind stretches across Dutch Harbor's choppy waters as I spot them. 3 figures huddled against the wind, looking small against the industrial backdrop of processing plants and supply warehouses. My parents and Rachel, exactly as I expected when the harbormaster called to warn me. Captain Mick says beside me, his weathered face creasing with concern. Want us to send them packing? I shake my head, watching them take in my vessel. Freshly painted hull. New hydraulic system gleaming under the weak Alaskan sun. Crew moving with practiced efficiency as they prepare for tomorrow's run. I'll handle this. 3 months of distance has hardened something in me. I stand straighter as they approach, noticing how my father's confident stride falters when he sees the improvements. The solar panels. The upgraded navigation array. The name freshly repainted with Howard C. LLC beneath it in professional lettering. Catherine, my mother calls, using my full name like she always does when trying to establish authority. Her voice carries across the dock, brittle with forced warmth. The harbor is buzzing about your operation. I don't move from the rail. You're welcome to come aboard my vessel. One conversation, then you leave. The emphasis on my doesn't escape them. They exchange glances, the same silent communication they've used my entire life when plotting strategy. Rachel clutches a leather portfolio against her chest like a shield. Permission to come aboard, Captain? My father's attempt at humor falls flat. Granted. I lead them to the galley, recently renovated with the profits from our record king crab haul. The space feels smaller with them in it, but for once, I don't shrink myself to accommodate them. I gesture the bench seats, remaining standing. Coffee? I offer, pouring myself a cup without waiting for their answer. My father leans forward, hands clasped between his knees. His negotiation posture. Kate, we've been thinking. It's time we put this unpleasantness behind us. We're still family, my mother adds, reaching across the table as if to touch my hand. I move it away, wrapping my fingers around my mug instead. Rachel looks different, thinner, with shadows under her eyes I haven't seen before. The university is establishing a new marine conservation research program. She says, we could form an exclusive partnership. Your fishing data, my research, the Howard legacy, combining traditional industry with conservation science. The rehearsed quality of their pitches hangs in the air between us. I take a slow sip of coffee, letting silence stretch until my father shifts uncomfortably. We could easily restructure ownership. He continues, voice dropping into the reasonable tone he uses with difficult clients. A family co-ownership arrangement. No need for all this. He waves his hand at the boat. Independence. I set my mug down carefully and reach beneath the table for the folder I prepared weeks ago, knowing this day would come. Before you continue, I say, laying it flat between us, let's establish what family has me in up until now. I open the folder, revealing the first-page photographs of equipment damaged during Rachel's research excursions. Dates stamped, with repair invoices attached. 6 depth sounders at $3,200 each. Navigation computer water damage, $4,700. Winch system overloaded beyond safety parameters, $8,900 replacement. I flipped the page. Logs documenting every time they'd borrowed fuel, gear, or crew hours, without compensation or acknowledgement. Family resources. I say, tapping the column of figures totaling over $120,000. The third page makes my mother inhale sharply bank statements showing mortgage payments on their home, Rachel's tuition payments, emergency medical bills after my father's gallbladder surgery. Perhaps, I say, my voice steady despite the heat rising in my throat. We define family differently. My father's face darkens. Now wait just a minute. No. The word cracks like a whip. For 32 years I've waited. I believed family meant mutual support, not endless taking. I looked directly at each of them. I have the emails where you discuss selling my livelihood to fund Rachel's PhD program, dated just a few days after I paid off your second mortgage. Rachel's eyes widened. Dad said you were planning to sell anyway. I never. I stop. Breathe. Every penny I earned went back into this boat or into supporting you all. Meanwhile, you plan to sell it from under me. My mother's eyes fill with tears. But for once they don't move me. We only wanted what was best for everyone. For everyone, I laugh. The sound harsh even to my own ears. Or for the daughter whose achievements you actually valued. My father stands abruptly, knocking the bench backward. After everything we sacrificed for you, this is how you repay us. With accusations and sit down. George. The voice comes from the doorway where Grandpa Howard stands, sea bag over one shoulder. And for once in your life, listen to your daughter. Pop, my father sputters. You don't understand. I understand plenty. Grandpa moves beside me, his presence a solid wall of support. You've been treating her like a workhorse instead of a daughter since she was 16. I watched it happen and said, nothing. That ends today. Rachel's face has crumpled, real understanding dawning for perhaps the first time. I close the folder. These are my terms for any future relationship. I say quietly, acknowledgement of past exploitation, respect for my boundaries, and the understanding that this vessel and business are mine alone. My father stands again. Slower this time. You always were stubborn, just like your grandfather. Come on, Helen, Rachel, we're not going to beg. But as they file toward the door, I catch the shift in my mother's face, manipulation giving way to genuine shame. Rachel lingers, her fingers trailing on the galley table. I never saw it, she whispers. I'm sorry, I never saw it. It's not enough, but it's a start. A year later, the morning sunlight streams through the windows of my Harborview office, casting golden patterns across the maps that line the walls. Each chart marks successful fishing grounds. The Northwind has claimed this year territory that belongs to Howard C. LLC, not family obligation. I trace my finger along the newest editions, pride warming my chest as I remember the record haul we brought in last week. A knock at the door pulls me from my thoughts. Greg, one of my first mates, stands in the doorway holding a stack of mail. Supply contract renewals came through, he says, dropping the envelopes on my desk. And this. He hands me an envelope with my parents' return address, their formal handwriting instantly recognizable. Birthday card? He asks, noticing my hesitation. I nod, tucking it into my desk drawer unopened. Third one since I left. Each own a little less stiff than the last. Outside my window, both vessels of my expanding fleet rock gently at their moorings. The Northwind gleams with fresh paint, and beside her, the Aurora purchased 3 months ago when we secured the Bering Sea contract stands equally proud. My eyes drift to the framed photo on my desk, My crew gathered on deck our first independent season, faces sun-weathered and grinning. The phone rings. I recognize Grandpa's number immediately. My captain granddaughter. He greets. Voice gruff with affection. The Finnegan boys just told me about your Sustainable Fishing Award. Making quite the name for yourself. I laugh, warmth spreading through my chest. Just using your compass like you taught me. Best thing I ever gave away, he says. Speaking of which, Rachel called yesterday. My hand tightens on the receiver. And? Got her own research grant. University funded, no Howard strings attached. Pride colors his voice. Said to tell you she's charting her own course now. Something inside me loosens at his words. The weekly calls with Grandpa have become my truest family connection, a bridge back to what family should be. He never asks for anything except my stories. My therapist says that's how I'll know I'm healing, when memories of what happened don't immediately spark anger. These days I think of my family with something closer to measured distance than rage. After hanging up, I grab my jacket and head down to the docks. The young woman waiting by the north wind stands straighter when she sees me, her eager expression barely masking her nervousness. Captain Howard. Her handshake is firm despite her anxiety. I'm Jessie Tanner. Thanks for considering my internship application. I study her 19, maybe 20, with calloused hands that tell me she's no stranger to hard work. Her family's small-scale operation has struggled since her father's accident last year. I recognize the look in her eyes, determination mixing with desperation, a willingness to work herself to exhaustion for family obligation. First rule, I say, unclipping Grandpa's compass from my belt and placing it in her palm. This stays with you during training, not because you'll get lost, but because it reminds you to navigate by your own stars. Confusion crosses her face. Second rule, your worth isn't measured by what you give away. The words emerge from a place of hard-won wisdom. It took me 32 years to learn that. Understanding dawns in her eyes slowly, like sunrise over the Alaskan coastline. Back in my office later, I sign the last documents for our upcoming contract. Our biggest yet. My signature flows more confidently now, no longer the hesitant scrawl of someone waiting for permission. Tomorrow we sail for new grounds. The community respect we've earned comes not from the Howard name, but from the integrity with which we operate. Sometimes I wonder if my parents understand what they lost wasn't just a boat, but chance to know their daughter. The last light of day catches on the water as I step onto the north wind's deck. I run my hand along the familiar railing, feeling the solid weight of belonging. This vessel carries my future now, not my past. I look toward the horizon, where tomorrow's possibilities wait. The water stretches endless and bright, mine to navigate at last.